Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the WSL NASCAR Series U.S. title fight. This is a pre-round, so no points are on the line. I'm Austin Belkey. Alongside me in the booth is Kenny Kibbe, and the man in the production trailer is David Christie. This is an all-out, no points round, so anything goes. Imagine this is the Busch Class or the Sprint Unlimited. It's a great chance to knock the dust off and kind of get acquainted to these cars and the drivers you're going to be racing around for the season. Kenny, we're at Daytona. What can you tell us about this place?
Yeah, Austin, this is obviously the place where the Great American Race happens. A lot of history at this place, both in the road or on the road course and on the oval. We'll be on the high banks this evening. 2.5 mile circuit. Obviously, all the cars will be flat out around this place. Drafting is going to be important here. Finding a dance partner is going to be important here. And survival of the fittest. Who can survive the dreaded big one that we will probably be accustomed to seeing here during this race at least once, maybe twice. It's a relatively short race at 50 laps, so everybody's going to be relatively aggressive, but there's definitely going to be some strategy to go along with this as well. Do you ride in the back, or do you try to lead every single lap? That's always a debate here at Daytona. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. No points are on the line, so you might expect to see some added aggression between these drivers, but it'll be cool for them to get to know each other the best way possible, and that's out on the racetrack.
For sure. Before we get going, we're just going to check the box of the sponsors. First off, we'd like to thank SIM3D. They're a UK-based business specializing in high-end bespoke sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk. We'd also like to thank Go for the Gap. Go for the Gap is a brand by Cami Sturch. She's a young British artist who creates some incredible motorsport themed prints over on her Etsy page. There's a fantastic Dale Earnhardt print she's got going on right now, free shipping on that. And if you like what you're watching, want to be a part of this, there are still some slots open. Harry Wills, the leader of this series, has made it known that there's a couple spots left. So if you want to race with these guys, they're sure going to fill up pretty quick here. Kenny, all the drivers are out on track. You can see the qualifying lineup so far. It's Carollo in the 52 car on provisional pole, and then the rest of the field. These guys are all pretty tightly packed together on time. It comes down to who can hold the prettiest wheel around here.
Yeah, from face value, it looks like a qualifying lap here at Daytona is relatively simple, and it really is, at least to get around here. But if you're going to put a pole time down, it's actually quite difficult. It really comes down to being a perfectionist. You got to get up through the gears, coming out of pit lane, absolutely perfect. You got to hold a pretty wheel, like what you said, nice and straight, not a lot of play in the wheel, minimal amount of turning. Can't clip the apron. You got to run the low line, preferably around the track, the shortest way around on your flyer lap, and you just cannot have any reason to have any kind of drag or loss of momentum here. And Carollo has done a fantastic job so far. He is the only driver with a sub 50-second time at the moment. Ellen, is just as I say that, Thomas Fisher goes to the top of the board with a 49.967. So a few drivers with sub 50-second laps so far.
Yeah, 2/100ths of a second faster than Jeff Carollo. And Kenny, you kind of have to be really good at riding on the low side as well as riding on the high side, because you kind of use the gravity, the force of gravity coming off these high banks to propel the car down the straightaway. And it doesn't last the whole lap, but it gives you maybe another 10th or 100th of a second, which is so crucial here.
Yeah, you see we're riding on board with Drew Neubauer here, and he's coming up through the gears onto the backstretch for the first time. And that's a good point that you made there, Austin. These drivers get 2 laps, so really you can kind of waste your first lap just by getting up to speed. And you see Neubauer here, he's going to run the high line, and really he could run the high line all the way around the track if he would want to for his first lap. But then that second lap, you really do want to be right down at the bottom, making the shortest route around the track possible, and that'll make your quick time. But you see Neubauer here still getting up to speed. It takes up to a lap or more just to get up to speed in these cars, and then you'll see him probably go down all the way down to the yellow line.
Yeah, right now he's riding up against the top. Usually you see guys in between the wall and that white dashed line up there right next to that wall. You can fit a car just barely between those two things. And when he comes out of turn 4, he'll probably stay up there. And right until he gets to the tri-oval, coming off the tri-oval is when you start to bring the car down to get that gravity, giving you a little bit more horsepower and some speed as you go down into turn 1. And then from there, you're just riding that double yellow line.
I'm actually glad you brought up the fact that you squeeze up against the wall there. When we start to get into the racing here this evening, this place seems so wide when we're watching single car qualifying runs, but and you will see 3 wide action. Every once in a while you'll see 4 wide, but this track is actually quite narrow. It's way narrower than a track like Talladega, for example, and of course with the pack racing, space becomes a premium, and sometimes things get really tight around Daytona. It can be very tricky when these drivers are in a pack, so we'll have to see how that plays out and how nicely everybody wants to play with each other.
For sure. We're going to head to Talladega later in the season. So you'll see, at Daytona, you can comfortably go 2 wide. 3 wide is kind of pushing it. At Talladega, it's a little bit wider by about 2 car widths. So 3 wide is definitely okay. 4 wide, you're pushing it. You can go 5 wide, but you really shouldn't.
For sure, and we're taking a look at Sean Smith right now in a very nicely done, simplistic Valvoline paint scheme. I like that. And at the moment, Thomas Fisher still P1 on the board with his 49.967. Again, only 2 drivers with sub 50-second times. 24 drivers, I believe, have taken time so far, with just a few drivers who have not taken times. But obviously, it's nice to start up front, but Austin, it's not necessarily the end of the world if you do start in the back end. In fact, some drivers may want to choose to intentionally start back there for safety.
Yeah, for sure, Kenny. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter where you qualify. You want to be up front for most of these wrecks because there's no one to, be in a wreck in front of you and have to avoid them. But at the same time, as soon as you get back in the pack, we've seen wrecks happen from the first or second car in line. So oftentimes, even if you can slow down for a wreck, the person behind you doesn't. So sometimes you want to be that last driver in line. And we've seen Dale Earnhardt do it a lot of times. You can come up through the field with just a couple laps left in the race, especially if you got a clean car without any damage on it. You can just zoom up through there and win the race, from 10th or something on the last lap. So definitely lots of options here.
Yeah, and I've been seen it firsthand. Both strategies work, where either you want to be the driver up front, you can win that way and lose that way, but you can win and lose from being in the back as well. One thing, though, for sure, that drivers who want to stay in the back, they do want to make sure that they stay in the draft. And these next-gen cars, they are very good at sucking up to the drivers in front. And with the latest draft package of the Gen 6 car, that was sometimes a problem. It was pretty easy to lose the draft if you weren't careful. But with these next-gen cars, they really seem to suck up pretty well. The runs are really huge here, and they seem a little more conducive to actually pushing and bump drafting here as Smith finishes his lap at a 50.381. That'll be 22nd quickest. But that's one thing I've noticed from the driver's seat so far in these next-gen cars is that bump drafting seems a little easier to do around Daytona and Talladega now.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier, and you also talk about the difference between a bump draft and an actual push, because obviously if you bump someone, that's going to give them extra speed, but the best way to get you and the guy ahead of you up ahead of everyone else is to just give them a steady push. And Kenny, we saw that while you were doing your Daytona 500, even some of the other races you've been in. Just a steady push helps get you out further.
For sure, and one thing I've noticed, though, is that these guys, if they do want to be aggressive with pushing, they will have to watch out for their temperatures and how they will rise. You will not be able to put tape on these cars, but there still can be overheating issues in these cars, so you do have to kind of monitor that as we go through, but you'll definitely see some hefty pushes near the end of this thing. And from my point of view, I would not push at all into the last few laps, but I know some drivers will definitely want to test the waters, try to find some dancing partners out there, see what works, what doesn't. And that's one advantage to being kind of an aggressive driver, is you can kind of find out what you can and cannot do before it becomes crunch time. And speaking of crunch time, it's time to get this thing going as qualifying is over. And Austin, why don't you take us through our starting grid?
For sure, Kenny. Lining up on pole is Thomas Fisher. Jeff Carollo lines up in second to his outside. Eric Kulaga lines up in the third position with Harry Windham to his outside fourth. Lyle Exer lines up in fifth with Christy Ryan in sixth. James Howard lines up in seventh with Jonathan Harvey to his outside in eighth. Judith Cooper lines up ninth, and Sean Campbell rounds out the top 10. Casey Metzger lines up in 11th with Stephen Martinez to his outside in 12th. Jason Ahrensberg lines up in 13th, and completing that row number 7 is Justin Delano. Travis Kepler lines up in 15th with Matthew Plaisance in 16th. Starting 17th is Drew Neubauer with Andrew Hewson lining up in 18th. Harry Wills and Rich Matthews round out your top 20.
Dan Florea will be in 21st. Starting next to him will be Sean Smith. Dean Timms will be in 23rd, and 24th is TJ Hanley. Errol Urexoy is the final driver who put a time down in qualifying. He'll be 25th. Starting next to him will be Katie Height in 26th. Sorais Fitzpatrick will be in next. Actually, no, I misread that. My bad there. Dan Florea, Sean Smith, Dean Timms, TJ Hanley, Earl Rexoy, Katie Height. Matthew Green is next. I'm sorry about that. David Force is in 28th. Fitzpatrick is in 29th. And finally, Jamie Jessica Martin will be in 30th.
That was a weird glitch there, Kenny. I saw that on my screen too. I was like, hold on, no, he's right. And I looked over like, oh, that's iRacing's definitely got something wrong. We'll give these drivers just a little bit more time before they can all pop into the session. And then you'll see the iRacing pace car roll down pit road, and these guys will get going. Kenny, this is when the butterflies start to become a factor.
Yeah, and for me personally here at Daytona or Talladega, I'm kind of thinking, based on where I'm starting tonight, what's kind of my game plan here? Do I have some friends around me that I can use to get up towards the front, or am I already starting near the front? Do I want to stay there, or do I kind of want to just hang back? And more recently, I've been a fan of, I want to try to be up front, but if it's going to be really messy right from the beginning, if guys are trying to make it three wide right away, things like that, I'm wanting to kind of drop back and maybe just kind of settle in and ride around a little bit. But who knows? I mean, a lot of these drivers will have different strategies in this. And again, it's 50-lap race, which can seem long, but can seem short as well. We'll have at least one pit stop today, but if we can stay green for a while, these laps will count down pretty quickly. So eventually these guys will have to start making moves.
For sure, and just because you start up front doesn't mean you can't be dead last by, the end of the first lap. I've seen a lot of guys, as soon as they get to the backstretch, they'll pull all the way down below that double yellow line and go all the way to the back because they just want to ride back there for a while. That's kind of what I like to do for the majority of these races, is just kind of hang around in the back. I'll try and race up front, but it's like you said, Kenny, as soon as it gets any little bit dangerous and people start wrecking around me, I'm just going to drop to the back and hope I can find some dancing partners back there so I don't lose the draft.
For sure, and there's obviously going to be some teammates working together in this race, and but in the end, it's going to be every driver for themselves, and it's going to be especially true this week because of the fact that this is not a points race. So definitely remember that when we start seeing some aggressive moves, because points are not on the line. It's just for bragging rights and kind of getting to know each other in this series. So, but we're about to go green here, and Thomas Fisher is ready to lead us to it.
Yeah, the iRacing pace car has its lights turned off. He's going to make the hard left turn down pit road, give command of the field over to Thomas Fisher. He's going to wait for the flagman to throw the green flag, and even a little bit longer now, he puts his foot down on the loud pedal. You're going to see these cars accelerate from about 60 miles an hour all the way up to about 190, 200 mile an hour by the time we're going to complete lap one. Like you said, Kenny, these cars take quite a while to get up to top speed.
They do, and you have to get up through the gears, and of course we have 5 gears now in these next-gen race cars, so it will take a little bit of time to get up to speed. And it was interesting to see that the second-place driver there, Jeff Carollo, dropped right behind the leader immediately, wanted to get straight down to that bottom line. A lot of drivers, they do want to pick a certain line to be in, and just kind of stick there for quite some time, but I do kind of like what I'm seeing. There's quite a few drivers up in that top line. And one good thing about this next-gen car is you do have to have help to make your line work, but if you do have some strength in numbers, you can make either line work around here, and even the middle if it comes down to it. So the drafting package in this next-gen car is very racy.
For sure, and there's also the point of, sometimes it's just easier to run down on the inside because you only have to worry about cars to one side or only one side. You just kind of hold the inside the entire time around the track, park that car right next to the yellow line. And if you're the outside line, you kind of need to pinch down a little bit in the corners to pinch off that bottom line and make sure you're getting a good run off the corners to make sure you can, not only take feet off the lap, but kind of side draft the other cars.
So you saw right there, Henry Wyndham actually took the lead there from the top line and dropped straight down to the bottom side. That's going to leave it open for Christina Ryan, and she's going to now take the lead, and she looks like is going to lead this lap here, starting lap number 3. And this is what we see a lot at Daytona. You'll see kind of a constant cycle. One line will kind of shoot up to the front, and then the leader of that line will drop into the other lane, and then it'll kind of just recycle itself. And the next driver will come up, come down, and it's just a revolving door. And that's one reason why drivers exchange positions so quickly around here. You can go from first to 10th, back up to first in no time.
Yeah, we were riding along right there on the front end there of oh, we have a caution already. We were riding along with the 28 car of Harry Windham, and he was getting a big push there from Thomas Fisher down the back straightaway, but we've got our first caution today. We'll see if we can't get a replay here for the cause for caution. These drivers are instructed to, once the caution is flown, slow down until they get to the white and black checkered flag line there, the stripe, and then after that they'll just kind of slow down and make sure the pace car can catch up to them.
Yeah, so this one looked like it was kind of a bump draft gone wrong. You had a couple drivers getting together there. Dan Florea, and he was being pushed by Eero Urexoy, and they kind of got together all at the same time, and and Florea hit Kepler in front of him, and they kind of just all accordioned up. And that's one thing that happens at Daytona quite easily, is you might be trying to give a push to a driver in front of you, but you kind of need to know what's happening a couple cars in front of you or in front of them to really coordinate that uh, bump draft correctly. Otherwise, if you kind of push someone into someone else too hard, like what we just saw there, it can kind of just stack everybody up and it causes issues. And one thing that's really difficult is that when you're tucked up behind somebody giving someone a push, you really can't see anything. So you're kind of just trusting or guessing to what's up ahead of you, and sometimes you guess wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You never want to push the pusher because if that happens, you're just going to squish that guy. And just what happened there, you kind of sent him into the outside wall, and that's just a really big, like a Kenny, an accordion effect down through the rest of the field. The pace car is out in front. Christy Ryan is in the lead here in the number 24 car. Rounding out the top five is Jonathan Havey, Henry Windham, Sean Campbell, and Thomas Fisher. Thomas was your pole sitter, like we mentioned, and the two drivers that started on the front row. The guy who started on poles in fifth, and then the guy who started on the outside, Jeff Carollo, he's in seventh right now. So the people that started at the front of the field certainly didn't stay there for long.
Certainly not. And I think, they were not being too aggressive at playing defensively. I think they just kind of wanted to trust whatever line that they were in, and it wasn't always the fastest. So I'm sure that they feel confident enough to get back up front. Quite a few drivers there did pit under that caution. Now, some of these drivers might pit intentionally just to kind of put themselves in the back of the field as kind of a safety net. And other drivers, might decide to top off on fuel, maybe grab a set of tires just 'cause. That's one thing as a driver, I'm plenty fine with taking tires often if they're allotted to us and we have enough to make it to the end of the race, because why not? Track position doesn't really matter a whole lot here usually, and you can make up the spots, so why not play it safe and take 4 tires?
Well, not just that, Kenny. I mean, you get those 4 fresh feel goods, but you also have the added bonus of knowing for a fact that you can make it to the end of the race on fuel. The 65% fuel load is a bit more reduced compared to what the actual guys are running, especially what you're going to run. And I asked the Daytona 500 that was here on iRacing, especially compared to some other leagues. So it just gives you an opportunity to be able to pit later and, of course, hope a caution comes out. These guys do have one faster pair, though, Kenny. We saw, I believe it was Daniel Florea come down pit road, one of the drivers involved in that accident, and you saw him stop in his box and immediately got all the body panels put back on that car to give him a fresh piece. So he's going to be really fast, but it's always kind of treacherous to use your faster pair this early because you only get one.
It is for sure. Especially at a track like this, you want to put that in your back pocket and save it until, well, hopefully never use it, but really save it until the very end if possible when things really get aggressive. But sometimes you just have no choice and you have to take that faster pair early, which some of these drivers did have to. And they're going to be driving with a slightly different attitude now, with that kind of in the back of their mind, knowing that they have to make it to the end of this thing with the car that they have. And other drivers, they have some house money to play with if they still have their faster pair left. So that definitely plays into your mind in league races like this where you have one faster pair only. But these guys are double filed up now, and we're about to get racing here.
For sure, and I'm glad you brought up that point of you kind of drive differently once you've used your first faster pair, and especially the term of house money. A lot of these guys that still haven't used their faster pair, they have the option rather, if they want, to be a little bit more aggressive than those drivers that have kind of just taken their faster repair. They can kind of put their car in different places and be more aggressive because they know if there is an accident, as long as they don't roll over or flip or blow an engine, they can't get back to the pits. They can just come down pit road, get a fresh car, and still be faster as the guys that just use their faster pair. If they get any damage on those cars, for the most part, they're kind of out of contention.
Right. The only thing that would really kind of take them out or hurt them is if they end up in a wreck where they flip over or something like that and are forced to take a tow and they lose some ground that way. But at least, having that faster pair has definitely helped.
iRacing pace car pulls down pit road. The green flag flies, and Christina Ryan puts her foot back on the loud pedal. You can see these cars start to fan out. You can see right there, that was our old pole sitter, Thomas Fisher. He said, I'd like to have the top lane. Usually we saw the top lane prevail, at least in a couple of the other Daytona 500 events, especially the NIS fixed or open. That top line was where you wanted to be. It was kind of like you mentioned, Kenny, a revolving door of new leaders. Somebody would get to the front and then drop down low once that inside lane started to get a run. And for the most part, the outside lane was faster.
Yeah, the outside, it's easy to keep up the momentum just because, you can kind of ride the banking all the way down the backstretch. You lose some ground in the corners, but the bottom it's easy to check up on the bottom as well. The fact that you're kind of all sunk right down to almost down to the apron. The top side's a lot easier to keep the momentum up. However, if it really comes down to whatever line is organized, and you see right there over the last lap, the bottom line was way more organized than the top, and you see the bottom prevail. And an interesting move from Jeff Carollo, actually move up to the outside, and now he is leading the outside line at this point, which was kind of discombobulated, but give it a few laps and you may see an outside line form again. And there you go, just as I said it, two drivers, Christina Ryan and Sean Campbell, move straight to the high side and they take the lead.
Yeah, they just totally hung Jonathan Havey out to dry. We're going to see a lot of that before the night is through. And I'm glad you brought up that point of, the top side starting to flounder. And it did that because the top two cars in line just dropped down to the bottom. And at that point, the bottom line has such a huge advantage. And once you have that little cars on the high side, the bottom line prevails again. And then it takes a couple laps for that high side to kind of get back up to speed. And drivers become more confident with getting a run up there because usually all it takes is one fast guy to start coming up. And then, just like you mentioned, Kenny, the driver of that number 52 car, Jeff Carolla, the guy that started on the outside pole, he saw a lot of speed up there, said, I'd like to go to the top, and he kind of just rode that momentum.
Yeah, it looks like he's been definitely playing offense, trying to get straight to the front. I actually saw him narrowly have contact with the 26 car while he was behind him. And one thing you do have to be careful with is if you are going to do a bump draft, you got to make sure that you're careful with bump drafting in the corners, and you're careful with. You got to make sure you hit the car in front of you nice and square, and preferably in the middle of their bumper. Hitting to the left or the right side of their car can spell danger for that car that you're pushing, especially if it's in the middle of the corner or the tri-oval.
Yeah, really easy to upset these cars, and as soon as you get them upset, they're incredibly hard to save. It's a lot different to save these cars than it was in the old generation. This new rack and pinion steering has been catching a lot of drivers out, not just in the sim, but in NASCAR as well. It's really difficult to save these cars.
Definitely is. These cars are very twitchy. They're very responsive, which can be helpful in traffic and allow you to make some quick, aggressive moves. But it's hard to save these cars if they get into a slide. Very easy to kind of just overcorrect and shoot back across the track. And it's also just when you're being pushed and the car's going to get light, as we do have another caution on the speedway. But what I was going to say is when the car's going to get light from being pushed, it really makes them a handful.
Yeah, there was a big caution there out of turn 4. I didn't quite catch the number. I do know it is that fantastic looking mellow yellow car you see down on the apron there without a front fascia. He was one of the drivers completely stopped on the track, and you see a couple other drivers tailing the rest of the field. We're going to get a replay here to see the cause for caution.
Yeah, and it looked like this was caused by a checkup in the outside line, and it again caused another one of those accordion effects. None of these drivers, I don't think, were even trying to do any bump drafting. They just checked up and didn't check up enough, and it led to Justin Delano getting into Matthew Plaisance and spinning him around and catching a couple other cars involved in that as well, including that mellow yellow car, Travis Kepler, that you mentioned. So pretty hefty damage for those guys, but that's just how quickly things happen here at Daytona. You're following a line, trying to mind your own business, and you see Kepler there, almost made it past. He just got hooked and straight into the outside wall.
Yeah, almost made it all the way through there, and that's the most gut-wrenching thing you can have happen is to barely make it through a wreck, think you've made it through, and all of a sudden a car comes up and blindsides you on the inside. You hate to have that happen, but yeah, Kepler, Delano, Plaisance, all involved in that incident. I couldn't tell for sure. It looks like Jason Ahrensberg was involved in that one as well, but we'll see what happens here in the next couple laps to see who pits and who doesn't.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to have quite a few takers on pit road. Again, you can't... nobody's going to be able to make it here from here on fuel, but some drivers, they may want to just get a full service and get some new tires, maybe just even topping off with some fuel here. Quite a few drivers are in pit lane. One driver actually, Daryl Urek, so I just missed his pit stop. It was pit stall
Yeah,
there,
Casey
so he had to back
Metzger
up.
kind of just blew through his just a little bit, and it's really hard to get these cars to stop, Kenny. I've heard you and some of the other drivers we talked to talk about it, just how difficult it is to slow these cars down once they get all the way down. You know, at high speeds they can brake really effectively, but at low speeds it's difficult to get them to stop. Katie Height went into pits, James Howard, Judith Cooper, Harry Wills, Lilac Zier, Matthew Plaisance, Travis Kepler, Casey Metzger, Jude Neubauer, TJ Handley, Errol Yorksoy still down on pit road, as is David Force. And yeah, a lot of takers this time by.
Yeah, and I don't know really why the cars are so hard to stop at a slow speed, but they truly are. They really feel like they have worse brakes than Gen 6 cars when it comes to stopping in pit lane. They have unbelievably good braking force at high speed, and that's probably coupled with the downforce that these cars have compared to the old cars. But uh, yeah, stopping at a low speed like pit lane speed down to zero is been very difficult, and the braking distances have been a lot longer than what's been expected.
Jeff Carollo inherits the lead under that pit cycle. Sean Campbell stayed out, as did Thomas Fisher and Stephen Martinez. I think the first driver to come down pit road was Christina Ryan there, so Jonathan Harvey, he might have stayed out too. We'll just have to see how these whole thing cycles out. I think Sean Smith, Dan Floria, Eric Kulaga, Rich Matthews, Dean Timms. Yeah, a lot more drivers stayed out. Yeah, Christina Ryan, the first driver to come down pit road. She currently sits in the 14th position, so 13 other drivers ahead of her.
And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I thought that Sean Campbell was actually the winner of the EU race. So he's there for a reason up in the front. So he's done a good job to get up there, and he's probably looking to stay up there. He started 10th today, so him and Carollo have been relatively aggressive, but they've made it work. So it'll be interesting to see though those drivers who pitted, if they're going to intentionally stay in the back or if they're going to be aggressive and try to get right back up to the front here when we go green.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what people like Christina Ryan do, Jason Ahrensberg, as well as Harry Wills. Harry's usually more of a reserve driver, so if he's up there fighting for the win, definitely going to know he's pushing, being a little bit more aggressive on this occasion, especially with that fuel in the car. They kind of know they can make it a little bit longer on fuel and tires than the rest of the cars out here. So if they do want to push it under a green flag stop and hope for a caution, they do now have that ability.
For sure. And yeah, can confirm Sean Campbell did win the EU race. That was a little bit earlier. I thought I was correct. So yeah, he's looking for kind of a clean sweep here. That'd be very impressive at a place like Daytona where it's kind of a crapshoot if you could win both of these things.
Yeah, very much a lottery in terms of winners. Comes down to skill, though. Regardless, the iRacing pace car pulls down pit road. Masterful job with the restart there by the two cars on the bottom. That's going to be Jeff Carollo and Thomas Fisher. You saw Sean Campbell just kind of slot down low, tucking behind those guys. Now all three of those cars go into the high side, kind of going in the middle right now. It'll be interesting to see where they go. I feel like you want to be on the high side, but obviously we've seen some drivers really feel like it's advantageous to be on the bottom.
Well, right now that top line is way more organized than the bottom. A lot more drivers up there. But what's been really interesting about this particular race is drivers have not been afraid to go to the top or the bottom. They've really mixed up lines. Look at that. As we go down to turn 3 there, kind of a block thrown there by Jeff Carollo trying to keep the lead. Behind him, that was Thomas Fisher challenging, and it looks like that's going to open up the door for Sean Campbell to possibly take the lead. He will not lead this lap, though. But these drivers have not been content with really riding in either line. They will switch lines, it seems like, every corner, and that's really exciting to see because it's not leading to one particular line being dominant at any particular time.
For sure, we see one car down on pit road. That's Justin Delano trying to get more damage repaired. Obviously, it looks like he's going to have to come in and get his fast repair here so we can kind of keep his car on speed with the rest of the field. And yeah, Kenny, oftentimes you mention it, you know, if you want to pass a lot of cars, you got to go where they're not. That just means if they're on the high side, you go down to the inside. And it looks like for the most part, these guys can really handle their cars on the high side or down low. They've been very responsive in doing that, so very much not afraid to do either.
Yeah, well, the key thing about Daytona here is you can go where other drivers are not, but you have to have help to an extent. And the good thing is that drivers behind, a guy makes a move, and drivers are not necessarily afraid to go with them and make that line work. And however, the Rich Matthews, they're trying to make the bottom work, and nobody's deciding to go with him at this point. This seems to be the most organized that I've seen one particular line so far in this race. And you see, that's the danger about Daytona and Talladega is if you don't make a move that brings other drivers with you, you can just potentially be freight trained all the way to the back of the draft. And that's what's going to happen to Rich Matthews. He has gone from fifth place to outside the top 10 just like that, and he may actually lose the tow from this front draft.
Yeah, luckily for him, there's another group of cars and a different draft just behind him. They might be able to pick him up here in a couple seconds. We're riding along, looking out the rear end of his car. The driver just beyond him is Andrew Hewson. So Hewson trying to get a draft. We'll see if he pushes him or dumps him. He is going to push him right now. Luckily for Rich, obviously he's kind of hoping for that to happen. You see just behind him is the car, the number 2 of Sean Smith and Andrew Hewson behind them. And then there's a third pack led by Daniel Floria and Harry Will starts that other pack. So we go back to the front, and it was really interesting, Kenny, too, because the 92 of Thomas Fisher, he looked to the inside there of Jeff Carollo, and as soon as he did that, there was a huge bubble of air that Steven Martinez was able to get in. He just shot all the way down to the bottom and took the lead for a hot second, and then the outside line kind of prevailed.
Yeah, and there's a chance that if these drivers stay single file like this, they may actually run away from that second pack who's trying to run them down. What that second pack back there is wishing for is that these guys up in the lead pack get side by side, because that's just going to create a big wake and slow the whole group down if it happens. But if those guys stay single file for quite some time, they may actually be able to run away from the second group. And there we go. We are seeing a few drivers in the back of this first group. There you see them back there, a few drivers trying to make the bottom work and really kind of spreading this group apart. And that's going to slow them down and possibly bring that second group back up into the lead draft.
Yeah, Harry Wyndham, Dean Timms, I think Sean Cooper was the third driver there down on the inside. A fourth driver has joined them. I believe that's Sean Campbell on the inside in that red Valvoline car, that Chevy Camaro. Well, one driver extremely loose. That was driver in fourth place, Eric Kulaga, kind of got that car just a little bit sideways, a quick wiggle from him. And even at speed, Kenny, these cars are pretty hard to drive. It's not just keep it mashed and hold the wheel. These cars can kind of get sideways every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, they can be twitchy at times. Like I said before, the steering is very responsive, but again, if you're being pushed or you're in this turbulent air, it can just kind of whip you around and throw you around left and right around the track, and you just have to be really careful about where you're moving. I mean, just a foot or two to the left or to the right can be the difference between having a clean race car and wrecking the entire field. That's just how tight the racing is here at Daytona. And when you're being pushed and when you're in turbulent air, things like that, it just kind of magnifies that and makes these cars a little bit tricky to drive. And you can also get light up off the turns here too, or in the tri-oval, especially again when you're being pushed. And that can also lead to some problems.
Yeah, for sure. You can take the air off someone's spoiler by having it go around your car and up off theirs. It's kind of less loaded, so the cars do get really light in the rear end. And just as we cut to different camera angles there, you could see the number 26 car of Sean Campbell, that red Valvoline car down on the inside, challenging for the lead. But again, the high side kind of prevailed. For right now, it looks like the high side's better, but we might see it change back in a couple laps.
Yeah, these guys are definitely not afraid to mix it up here. They are catching up to a lap car that's coming out of the pits. That's your Rexoy there on the bottom. He should be able to stay on the apron out of the way. There he is up ahead. As you see, we're riding on board around the quarter panel of the second place car Fishers. We do have another caution.
Yeah, we'll see the replay here to see what the cause for caution is. We see these drivers race back to the start-finish line, and this was forming up to be a pretty good race here. These guys, once again, Kenny, showing that they're not afraid to go too wide and, go for the gap.
Yeah, so this actually happened right behind our leaders. We just weren't looking at it. Eric Kulaga, he tried to come back down. He was kind of getting freight trained by some drivers in the middle line, and he tried to come down, kind of step into line, and the drivers behind did not want to let him in, and yeah, just kind of caused a wreck there. But this is really good for that group of drivers who are in that second pack. They will be able to catch back up to the draft now, and I expect to see plenty of drivers on pit lane because fuel is starting. We're starting to get into the fuel window at this point.
Yeah, if you stop right now, you can make it on fuel for the rest of the race. So kind of coveted position anymore that, these guys stop, especially the guys that are up front. They can come down pit road and get enough fuel to kind of finish the race. You want to make sure you have a full tank. So the fact that those drivers pit a little bit earlier, like your Height and your Floria, Metzger, Wills, Kepler, Plaisance, those guys can still come down pit road. They'll have to spend less time down there. But, if they change their tires, just like the people at the front of the pack, you're kind of equal on time. But if you do want to come down, not take 4 fresh good years, just maybe take a half a can of fuel, you can beat these guys out on pit road that are coming into pit road ahead of you.
Yeah, and in past experience, I've not seen a whole lot of tire wear at this place, so you may very well see drivers take 2 tires or maybe 0 tires at all. We do have some decently hot temperatures here with a 108-degree track temp and a 70-degree ambient temperature Fahrenheit. But yeah, there's a collision on pit lane I just saw. That was between James Howard was involved in that. That's going to give him some damage. Steven Martinez involved as well. But yeah, pit lane is very busy.
Yeah, pit road is a pretty busy place indeed. If you pit right now, you can make it to the end of the race on fuel perhaps. And yeah, there's that wreck you see right down there in the middle of pit road. Kind of a bad angle to see it right here, but we're going to get a replay of what happened. You can see that's Campbell out there, driver number 53, Steven Martinez. You pretty much called it perfectly there, Kenny. Just a miscommunication trying to get into the box.
Yeah, so that was actually after the replay. There was actually after the first collision, and then after that, Martinez just trying to get into his box, and then he gets hit by Harry Windham, and so that's two collisions for Martinez in that one pit cycle there. So that's a rough go at it for him, and he may be forced to take a fast repair here, just from a pit stop.
Yeah, these drivers have been instructed as well to only go, when they go into their pit box, only go through 3 pit boxes into and out of their stall. So you can't just be riding down pit road all the way to the left side. You're supposed to be in the fast lane, which is all the way on the right, separated by white dashes. You'll see that next time we come by the front stretch here. You're not supposed to go through too many other pit boxes. That's why you see a lot of the drivers kind of out there very wide, unlike how you see it in the real racing, the official stuff at least. But in real life, it is, you want to be on the right side. That's the fast lane. When you try to merge over, you run the risk of getting hit.
Yeah, and it's kind of almost a gentleman's code in a way to stay to the right side, because if you're going to drive down the middle or the left side of pit lane, then drivers behind you are going to have a hard time seeing their pit sign in their pit box because it's going to obscure their view. So especially if you're going to have an enforced rule of minimizing the amount of pit boxes that drivers can go through, that makes it that much more important that drivers stay to the right and allow that visibility for drivers behind them to be able to see their box, because they don't have all the time in the world to just kind of drive through all the pit boxes they want. They have to see their box and go to it immediately.
Yeah, you see Katie Height onto and then back off of pit road. She was one of the drivers involved in that most recent incident to bring out the 3rd caution of the night. We're currently on lap 15 out of 50. The car that was just behind the pace car was Errol Yuriksoy. He's been given the wave around, so he gets to kind of get his lap back. So now he should be only 7 laps down compared to the 8 he is currently. Dan Florea is the driver currently in first position. Travis Kepler is to his outside. Those are 2 of the drivers that were involved in the second wreck to bring out the caution. One of them being that sharp-looking mellow yellow car. The drivers rounding out the top 5 are going to be Matthew Plaisance, Christina Ryan, and Sean Campbell. Harry Wills is in 6th. Jonathan Harvey is in 7th. James Howard is in 8th. Thomas Fisher, our pole sitter, is in 9th. And Jeff Carollo, the guy that started to his outside to begin the race, is still to his outside, rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, so it looks like the top 3 drivers, Florea, Kepler, and Plaisance, are the ones who stayed out there. So then they're drivers who have not necessarily been right up front thus far, and we're about halfway through this race. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they are at trying to keep that track position, how aggressive the drivers who've been up front all day are at trying to get that track position back.
iRacing pace car pulls down pit road. Daniel puts his foot on the loud pedal. You're going to see that number 27 car, Travis Kepler, go all the way down to the bottom. There's enough room on the inside to allow the number 24 car of Ryan to slot down there as well. So inside line now, make that the top side as we're too wide heading down into turns 1 and 2. That is not what Florea wanted, but I'm sure the 27 car of Travis Kepler is loving this. We're going to see who gets helped the fastest, though.
For sure, it's drag race down the backstretch. I was watching Harry Wills in the 95 car. He got a heck of a shot, or push, I should say, from James Howard, but just nowhere to go with it, and they kind of had to back off and kind of regroup. They were really going for it there on the start. They got hooked up. But now we have two pretty even lines as we go through turn 3 and 4, and it looks like Travis Kepler has shot out to the lead. But he'll have to be careful here, is because if you make up too much of a gap between you and the rest of the field, you could kind of get sucked in and absolutely blown by.
Yeah, Travis Kepler was really helped out there by the number 26 car of Sean Campbell. That was my bad. He's not in the red car. He's in that black car there. The driver of the red car, I believe, is James Howard. So that was my bet on the call earlier. But yeah, that push down the backstretch on the inside, very huge for those cars. Now that you can see the outside starting to pull away as well. That's Dan Florea out front. Just behind him, he's getting pushed by Christina Ryan in the number 24 car. So it looks like the advantage for now back to the top side.
Yep, and we've seen Christina Ryan up front through this race, so obviously she's trying to get back up there again. And we've eclipsed the halfway mark in this race, and there's not really been a true favorite, and there usually isn't here at Daytona. That's one thing that makes drafting and this kind of racing so exciting, is you really have no idea who's even going to have a shot at winning this thing until we basically get to the white flag lap.
Yeah, they're 3 wide right now for about the 5th, 6th, and 7th position. That's Matthew Plaisance on the bottom, James Howard in the middle, and then up top is our pole sitter, Thomas Fisher. Very, very, scary for those drivers. They're making it work, though, for the time being. Still 3 wide. No one's really had an advantage, so all these drivers kind of taking and giving just as much to one another.
I cannot tell you what James Howard is feeling right now, being in the car in the middle. The turbulent air, the way that iRacing has modeled turbulent air nowadays in these cup cars is it's just unbelievable. Your car wants to move all around. You can kind of feel your car lose and gain pace as cars are trying to side draft off of you. It's a very unsettling and uncomfortable position, to be honest, but sometimes it's actually the fast way around, depending on how the draft is working. So James Howard getting some good practice here, stuck in the middle. It'll be interesting to see if anybody decides to go with him. So far, it's not happening.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a song.
Oh,
Oh,
contact.
we're wrecking down the backstretch. That is James Howard down to the inside, and I believe that's Jeff Carollo. They slide back up the track. A bunch of drivers involved. That's Sean Smith involved in a number 2 car. I believe Eric Kulaga is involved in the 66, and they're still wrecking. 1 car on his lid. Not quite sure who that is. Jason Ahrensberg involved, Justin Delano, Drew Neubauer, I believe, was the car up on his roof. He's towed back to pit road. You can see James heading down there as well. We're going to get a replay here, though.
Yeah, you see Howard was in the middle there, and they were kind of running this for over a lap, and it looked like behind Jeff Carollo didn't want to go with him. He wanted to go to the outside, and there they just kind of clipped Howard. It was kind of a coming together. I was going to say that maybe Howard drifted up, but it was a coming together there.
Yeah, Howard definitely went a little bit up. I feel like the number 52 there, Jeff Carollo, I think he was just trying to follow Thomas Fisher there for the most part, and he just didn't really understand just how close to his inside that number 29 car of Howard was, and those two kind of came together and got a little bit of a demon drag to go down to the apron and through the grass. And Kenny, you can tell us the best, once these cars hit grass, there's no steering.
Oh yeah, it's like being on ice, and really, you just try to lock it down as best as you can, and just try to slow the car down. And Corolla did a good job keeping the car relatively straight, but just could not get the car slowed down enough to avoid shooting back up across the track. And unfortunately, there was a bunch of other drivers who have yet to come through. And for those drivers, riding in the back, that's an example right there where you can wreck from anywhere. The wreck happened up front. These drivers riding in the back, though, ended up being victimized by it just because of the driver going through the grass and coming back up across the track.
Yeah, and sometimes you cannot slow down enough. You see a handful of drivers on pit road: Daniel Florea, Jonathan Havey. Looks like that's James Howard. Harry Wills also on pit road. I believe that was uh, Jeff Carollo. He was the car in that second pit box there.
Yeah, and Carollo's actually claiming that his fast repair is not working, so I'm not sure if he's going to be stuck in his pit box just taking required repairs or not. But we shall see if he's going to be able to come back out and be competitive. He may have to make another pit stop and then take fast repair, but we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, for sure. It is a very well-known iRacing glitch that sometimes if you come down pit road and it is or isn't checked, you're kind of just forced to sit there and run down through the required repairs. Then it's up to you if you want to stay down there, bite the bullet, take the optionals, or come out and try to get your fast repair one more time. But oftentimes a mistake like that, even if it's not your own doing, really takes you out of contention for the race.
Does for sure because it's very important to have a car that's aerodynamically sound and has full power here. It's not like a short track where you can kind of get away with being down a few hundred RPMs or have some front end or rear end damage. You need your car to be as pristine as possible because of all the aero and the drafting and all that. That you turn into a just a parachute if you don't have a perfectly clean car. So that's going to be unfortunate for Carollo. He looked very strong through the first 30 or so laps of this one, but up front, Travis Kepler, just like that, went from a wrecked race car to now being up front um, with a clean race car at this point after taking his fast repair. So he'll be leading the field to green at this point. And with 20 laps to go, Austin, what do you think of what you've seen so far?
Definitely. I think just to retouch on some points we've mentioned thus far into the race, these guys really aren't afraid to make any moves on the bottom or on the top. We've seen a lot of give and a lot of take from these guys. You love to see that, and that's kind of what I expected coming into this race. Is these guys to race each other very clean, very fair, and very tight. These guys are very good at doing that very often. You'll see not a whole lot of incidents, especially on the roadside. So to have only 4 cautions this far into the race is pretty unprecedented for something on iRacing on these high banks. So what are your thoughts, Kenny?
Well, I like what you brought up there with these drivers have not been afraid to try either line. I think that's been kind of the most exciting thing for me, um, as drivers have not just stuck to one lane. They've kind of tried different things, and um, with this being not a points race, could be kind of make for some exciting moves here at the end. That's what I'm kind of looking forward to at the end is what are people willing to do to maybe win this race with points not being on the line. We know the Busch Clash has had some crazy finishes in real life NASCAR, so I expect something pretty similar to that here tonight.
Yeah, before we go back to the green, we're just going to thank our sponsors for the race really quickly. The first one being SIM3D. They're a UK-based business specializing in high-end bespoke sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk, as well as Go for the Gap. It's a brand of Cami Sturt. She's a young British artist who creates some incredible motorsport theme prints on her Etsy page. You can go check that out. Green flag flies. Travis Kepler puts his foot on the loud pedal. A huge advantage for him going down the front stretch. Seemed like he lifted, though, or at least the draft really helping out the car second in line is Sean Campbell. Kenny, that's one of the things you don't want to get too good a start on these restarts here at Daytona and Talladega.
That's a very good point. You can get too far ahead of the pack, and then they can just totally freight train you. And looks like they're trying to form a line on the outside. You see that Thomas Fisher leading that. He's been up front quite a bit today, and Christina Ryan is the driver right behind him, and behind them is Andrew Hewson in the third spot there in the top line. And I think they're going to get this move done, but it'll be interesting to see if the leaders here decide to go down to the bottom or if they're going to stick to that high line.
For sure. I think Christina Ryan has been one of the best pushers all day long here. So I feel like you almost kind of want to stay in front of her wherever she goes. And if she gives you too good of a push and you're kind of both clear, if she goes down to the bottom, you're going to have to go with her. But of course, as soon as I say that, looks like that inside line, Travis Kepler, and then the number 26 car, Sean Campbell, huge run on the inside. That was a fantastic push from Sean.
Yeah, and that bottom line really only has 4 cars in it at the moment. There's 3 more trailing behind, but there's quite a gap in between. Top line has more numbers, but again, it comes down to who's more organized, how close are each of the cars in that line to each other. And that really is going to determine the kind of how good of a push that these drivers are going to have. And yeah, that top line's really stalled out, and the first three on the bottom have now completely cleared and have the ability to block those other drivers if they choose to do so.
Yeah, they have the ability to block. Oh, they're actually going to hang. It looks like Travis Kepler out to dry, and check that. Actually, Rich Matthews goes down to collect Travis Kepler. They're all going to hang Sean Campbell out to dry. You can see the high line becomes the middle, then goes back to the high side, being led, of course, by that 92 car, Thomas Fisher. He's still being pushed by that number 24 car of Christina Ryan. So they're having a good mid race resurgence here.
Yeah, that was a great job by Fisher there. As always, Ryan goes high and is trying to get this pass
Oh,
done, and we have
Kepler
a wreck in the
involved.
back. Yeah,
Yeah, Andrew Houston sideways in the pack, and this is definitely the big one, Kenny.
yeah, definitely the biggest that we've seen
Yeah,
so far.
Christy
Wow.
Ryan on the inside, and that white car able to lock it down when she gets off the grass. She might have a clean car, just needs to come down pit road to get a set of four fresh feel goods. There's a lot of cars involved in that accident.
We'll take a look at the replay, but it almost looks like Houston just loses it all on his own. You see, he's the red and white car here on the left of the screen. He just kind of hangs a left, and then the banking just kind of shoots him back up the track. But that was really odd because he wasn't really being pushed too hard, and he didn't get hit by anybody. So
Yeah, Sean
unfortunate for him and the cars
Campbell,
behind.
Andrew Plaisance, the 40 car, like you mentioned there, Kenny, of Andrew Hewson, a handful of cars involved here. Eric Kulaga, Travis Kepler, obviously, a bunch of cars taken out in this incident, and a lot of cars too that had already taken their fast repair as well.
Yeah, and eventually you're going to start seeing some attrition, which we've already seen in this race. There's only about 20 cars that were on the lead lap
Yeah,
at
20
this point.
exactly.
Yep. So you might actually see less than that if some of these drivers are not able to come back out. We haven't really had a long enough run for any car that's underpowered to be lapped, and we're at the point now where I don't think we would get there anyway. But yeah, there's been a bit of attrition, and I was just about to say that Fisher, man, he took advantage of the front three cars kind of getting disconnected and trying to want to race each other. He shot right through the middle and jumped up to the front there, and is now the leader of this race. Him and I believe it was Ryan. They were working really well together for that little run.
Yeah, they were. They were definitely locked together, the best out of anyone in the entire field. A plethora of cars now coming down pit road. Most of them obviously trying to fill back up on fuel, but I assume a lot of them probably trying to take their fast repairs after being involved in that most recent incident to bring out the fifth caution of the night here. There's 15 laps to go, so pay window is going to open soon. Of course, no points being handed out tonight. This is very much kind of a press day, an exhibition race for these drivers, just out here to have fun. And I got to hand it to them. They've been having fun so far. It looks like a lot of fun to be out there, definitely taking chances, choosing the lanes, trying to make passes and stuff. And some of them, maybe you wouldn't do if points were on the line. Usually, Kenny, you kind of wait to pull out a line, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about timing, and a lot of times you do want to wait, but every once in a while you get that one run that, you just can't pass up. You have a good enough run to make that pass, and sometimes it kind of forces your hand into making that pass earlier than maybe you're expecting. Because you are always going to kick yourself if you had that run, didn't take it, and then you kind of let it go, and you never get that run again, and you're kind of forced to just sit where you're at. So, you kind of have to play it by ear. And sometimes, drivers who are going to be the pushers are not going to do their full-blown pushing until that time comes down to the end of the race. But a lot of these drivers, it looks like they're in the mood where they want to be up front all the time. Um, so you'll have cases like that too, where it's just going to be an endless cycle of drivers just saying, "I want to be the person up front."
Yeah, for sure. There's mostly two differing philosophies. One of Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's won a handful of races here, I believe 10 plate races in his entirety NASCAR Cup Series career, whether it be at Daytona or Talladega. He's won two different Daytona 500. So obviously there's a lot of knowledge there. It's if you get a run, take it. Doesn't matter where you're going or what you can do with that run. If you get a run, take it, see where it takes you. Then you got a driver like Jeff Gordon. He's won, I believe, 12 restrictor plate races, three Daytona 500s, and he's of the philosophy that if you get a run, you take it. but you try to think about what you're going to do before that. And sometimes you kind of crack the throttle just a little bit to maybe take advantage of something that comes your way and really, save that for making a bunch of high percentage moves, we'll call it.
For sure. And, if the competitive draft is going to get smaller and smaller here, it kind of promotes aggression, to be honest, because the penalty for having a move not work is going to be less. If there's only going to be 15 or so drivers who are actually competitive in this thing by the time we're done with this, um, and again, with this not being a points event either, that's also going to promote drivers into wanting to take that risk and try to make moves, and and they're also learning because like you said earlier, we're going to go to Talladega later this season, so this is going to be kind of a testing tune for some of these drivers in trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, not just Talladega to finish off the season. There's just Daytona, the same race next weekend, same time, same place. It's going to be nighttime, so the track's going to be a little bit cooler. These guys should have a little bit more grip, but pace cars come down pit road. Thomas Fisher, the man who started on pole, still in command of this race. That's Sean Campbell to his inside, but obviously, we said it before. You want Christina Ryan to be the person behind you. He decides to take the high side. We'll see if Christina is, you know. Uh, loyal to him. It doesn't look like they're going to be. They're going to go down to the inside and kind of do that classic slider line.
Yeah, a lot of drivers have made a habit of immediately switching lines after crossing the start
Oh,
finish.
Dan Flora into the wall on the high side out of turn two. It doesn't look like he has a front fascia of that car. Definitely underpowered. Sorry, Kenny.
Oh, you're good. A little bit of three wide action there at the very back of this front draft. That's Casey Metzger trying to make that middle line work, and he's able to slip into the bottom lane with no problem. Up front, though, it is Christina Ryan leading that top line for now. With Thomas Fisher, who arguably I think those two have been the strongest cars and most consistent up front in this race as we're approaching, it looks like 12 to go here. And that top line looks to be pretty strong. But again, if that bottom line gets organized, they will come straight to the front.
Yeah, and all it takes is one or two people on the high side to kind of duck out of line because they get a huge run. You can see that number 53 car, Steven Martinez. He's thinking about it, thinking about going to the low side there. Not really going to do much of it. He's going to crack the throttle, stay in line here. Just a couple more laps, maybe waiting for his opportunity. So far, the number 26 car is the first car down on the inside. That's Sean Campbell. The last time by, he was in the fourth position. This time by, he should be about fifth or sixth.
And he's really getting a push from Katie Hyden. Oh, there you see dropping down to the bottom line. That was Judith Cooper, who's down leading the bottom lane. So that's a name we have not said really at all in this race, but here they come. The car number 4 is really making some progress. Ooh, is nearly a bump draft gone wrong with the leaders there as Christina Ryan got really sideways.
Yeah, they were 3 wide back in the pack, just around Katie Height, Casey Metzger, and I believe Dan Floria. Just around there, they were 3 wide. They straightened it back out, though. Now they're back down to double wide trailer park style as they come out of turn 4. Christina Ryan still in command of the race. Only about 3 cars. There he is. Steven Martinez now looking to the inside. He's going to start a third line. Not going to get any help, though.
No, he's not, and he's stuck in the middle, and that's actually going to check up that entire high line. Oh, he's trying to get in back into the lane, and it's not going to work, but he can slip in. He lost 2 spots on his top line. He's going to be able to shuffle in there. And
yeah, crucially, though, that checkup going to give the inside line a huge run here. It was that man, Judith Cooper. We haven't talked about him all night, but like you said, Kenny, barely making a name for himself in the later parts of this race.
For sure, and these 2 lines now are completely even, and they're starting to be pretty aggressive with the pushes. And Sean Campbell, again, he's been pretty consistently out front as well. He's the one giving the push to that bottom lane. Judith Cooper is now going to shoot to the lead and will lead this lap as we now have 9 laps to go here. And but again, no real clear winning line at the moment, and we are catching a lap car, which can be problematic here at Daytona with how narrow the track is. So it all depends on when these leaders are going to catch that lap car. You just saw him for a quick second there in the shot as they went through turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, Kenny, if you're these leaders, where do you want to catch this guy? You want to catch him in the turns or around the straightaway?
You want to catch them on the straightaway if possible, and they're going to catch them going right into turn 3 here, which is not the greatest time to catch a lap car, but it looks like they're all going to get by with no issue, so that's good. But what it did, though, is it kind of consolidated the drafting lines and forced the leaders to go down to the bottom. They're going to shoot up to the top now, but it kind of narrowed up the groove and, kind of discombobulated the bottom line and forced it to be more of one line rather than two, at least for the leaders.
Yeah, so far we're riding along with Cooper. They're the person in the lead. Just behind him is Christina Ryan in that number 24 car. Then it's Sean Campbell. Then Thomas Fisher is the next person on the high side. You see Katie Height. She's the first person on the bottom side being pushed now by Daniel Floria and that number 97 car.
And Florea, he's had a decent amount of time up front. And a lot of these drivers up here have already been in accidents today, but they've taken their fast repair and they're going right back at it. Here we are. Oh, wow.
A big wiggle.
Yeah, big wiggle there. That was almost a bump draft gone wrong again. The tri-oval's a very treacherous place to be giving bump drafts. You can do it, but the car gets really light there, and Height did a nice job there of saving her car and making sure she kept the thing going straight, but it definitely killed her momentum, and now we have a single line down on the bottom.
Yeah, Matthew Plaisance, the lap car, definitely underpowered. Used both his one fast repair, both his cars earlier in this race. So he's kind of slow, just out here riding around, having a good time. And you can see the leaders kind of having to take evasive action there. He's very good to stay on the high side. But unfortunately, we're wrecking. We're wrecking. That's the number 68 car of David Force, and as well, I believe that was the Casey Metzger involved, and then Andrew Hewson for sure.
Yeah, so it looks like with this one, Force got a really big run on Henry Wyndham, and at the same time, Wyndham had kind of touched the apron. See Wyndham there in the white and black car, and he hits the apron, which kind of checks up Force, and Force kind of makes an evasive maneuver, and at the same time loses his car and collects a couple other cars in with him.
Yeah, it's really going to shake up the rest of this race. I believe we'll go back green before the end here. We've obviously got the 6th caution, 6 laps to go before we finish thing off. Sean Campbell is currently your leader. Judith Cooper is in 2nd place, and then Thomas Fisher is going to round out your podium. Stephen Martinez lines up in 4th, and Christina Ryan completes the top 5. And Kenny, I hate to say it, but some of these guys might be running a little bit low on gas.
They could be. Now, granted, a caution lap is definitely going to improve your gas mileage. But we only have 16 drivers on the lead lap anyway, so it may be possible that some drivers might say, what the heck, I'm going to come in and pit anyway, get some tires, fuel, whatever they need for these last few laps, because we all know how quickly track position changes. But it looks like no takers, at least for the leaders this time around. Just some drivers coming in to repair damage and salvage what they can.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, if you're there you see TJ Handley. He's only on iRacing for 6 weeks, doing a pretty good job out here today for only being on the platform for about 6 weeks. It's very hard to get acquainted to the simulator, and sometimes it takes a while to get used to it. I was probably on here for about a year and a half before I really got competitive.
Yeah, and this kind of racing is just so different from everything else. It seems easy in principle. You just hold you think that you just hold the foot flat on the floor and just kind of hold the wheel straight. But there's a lot more to that, and you add 30 cars or so onto the track at the same time, and it becomes a lot more complicated than that. And a lot of times you're actually not on the throttle. A lot of times you're half or three-quarter throttle, just kind of managing your runs and trying to get your spatial awareness and managing the draft and how you're going to gain runs and how guys will get runs on you is kind of an art form. And that's why there's certain drivers that end up being really good at this style of racing, because it really is an art form.
Yeah, while we're under the caution for the time being, SIM3D, one of our sponsors, are a UK-based business. They specialize in high-end bespoke sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk. They really do provide a fantastic piece of kit. The second sponsor for tonight is Cami Sturgis. Go for the Gap. You can find her stuff on Etsy. She's a young British artist who makes a bunch of incredible motorsport themed prints. Definitely go check her out on Etsy. She has a fantastic Dale Earnhardt print looking really nice, and she especially has even GT3, GTD, Le Mans cars, some Formula One stuff. Very awesome stuff on her Etsy page.
So yeah, we're coming to 4 laps to go now, and lights are off atop the iRacing pace car here. But so we're gonna have 3 to go when we go green here. So this is going to be interesting. 16 cars left on the lead lap, and really the cars who have been up front most of the race are up front. You know, Sean Campbell, Thomas Fisher, Christina Ryan. Those drivers have been up front the majority of this race. But you have some other players up there too that have kind of just made a name for themselves just recently, like Judith Cooper up there, Jonathan Havey, Steven Martinez even. Remember, he was just recently we were talking about him having his troubles in the pit lane, and now here he finds himself battling for a top 5. So um, anything can happen here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This is obviously, you mentioned it, Kenny, kind of a crapshoot. It's more of a lottery, we'll call it. Obviously, there is some skill involved. That's why Campbell's been up at the front and Ryan's been up at the front all day. Right now, your top 5 are going to be Campbell, Cooper, Fisher, Ryan, Havey. Then finishing the top 10 is Martinez, Height, Timms, Flora, and Metzger. So definitely, your regulars up there near the front for the World Series leagues. And if you're fast in the sports cars, you're definitely fast in these cars for the time being. But the iRacing pace car has their lights turned off. We're going to go green here with about 3 laps to go. So we should have a couple greens and then a white, then a checkered. Hopefully there are no more cautions before the rest of this race and we get to play out here. iRacing pace car prepares to make the hard left turn down pit road. They do finally pull off the track, and you can see some gamesmanship being played on the front row there between Campbell and Cooper. Campbell gets off to a great start, but that might be detrimental to him, Kenny, because these guys behind him are going to get a huge draft up to him and probably just blow right by him.
Yeah, well, at least the 92 car didn't, he didn't really have a drafting partner at the time either. So he's going to look to the high side, though. Yeah, he does have enough of a draft. He's going to make that move to the outside. So well played by Thomas Fisher. He's going to take over that lead.
Yeah, here comes Cooper on the high side.
Yes, and plenty of...
Oh,
and
the
looks
wrecking
like
behind him.
Yep. That was Steven Martinez was kind of at the epicenter of that. Just he kind of got sideways as he was being pushed down the backstretch, and when late in the race, I don't blame the drivers for behind him for still pushing, and he just could not keep the car under control.
No. We're going to get a replay here to see what the cause for caution was for. You're going to see that's Campbell, Martinez just getting a little bit sideways, and we are going to have a green-white checkered. This is attempt number 1 of 3. You can see the rest of the wreck playing out down the back stretch as these drivers try to straighten up their cars.
Yeah, that was Dean Timms that was giving the push to the 53 there of Steven Martinez, and they just kind of, I noticed that Martinez kind of got pushed into Christina Ryan, and that kind of like checked him up almost and just kind of got his car upset, and he never really regained good control.
Yeah, I mean, these cars are just so hard to correct, and we've seen that kind of time and time again, whether that's our own races, the real-life races, or even especially on the sim. It's really difficult to kind of catch these cars, and we do have a new leader, though. Fisher is the leader, Cooper in second, Campbell in third, Ryan in fourth, and then Havey rounds out your top 5, or right now looking at the number 92 car of Thomas Fisher. He won the pole, so obviously he's definitely very good at holding a pretty wheel.
Yeah, and he did a really great job of taking advantage of the leader being kind of too far out on that restart. And I kind of thought that the outside line was just going to blow by that inside line completely. But Fisher was able to get some drafting help just in time to stay clear of that outside line and have enough space to shoot up to that outside line to make that pass for the lead. And now he will have control of this restart. But, again, this could very easily be a repeat of the last restart where the leader ends up kind of being freight trained, as we find Sean Campbell is going to be restarting in third, and we weren't even green for a full lap.
Yeah, I think in that scenario, Thomas really was the luckiest man out on the track, at least to go up there and get the lead because, you saw Cooper kind of get a poor restart. It looked like he kind of spun his tires, just trying to make sure he got as close as he could to Campbell. And if you're on a single monitor, it's really hard to see the car next. You really have to tuck right in, get right on their door. Oftentimes it's not pulling or trying to get in the other guy's head. You just want to know when he goes so you can finally put your foot on the loud pedal as well to make sure you don't check up the entire line. And it's a race. You don't want to give your competitors any sort of edge or gap, distance that you're going to have to make up later in the race. So he tried to get down. They made a little bit of contact, and as soon as that contact was made, Campbell went for it. So that was really detrimental to both those two up on the front row.
That's actually a great point that you touched on there, Austin, that doesn't get talked about very often, and that's who has triple screens and who has or VR or who has a single monitor because I've raced with both single monitor and triple screens, and a single monitor is quite difficult in situations like this, where sometimes drivers will actually map buttons to their wheel so they can actually look left and right, but when they do that, it prevents them from looking forward. So that's a tricky kind of art form to master, and if you have triple screens or a VR,
Wide
it can
monitor,
really,
yeah, ultra wide.
yeah, it can really help your visibility and allow you to just be able to physically move your head around and be able to see what's around you. And anything that can help you gain an advantage in a racing like this is going to, be really helpful, and not only to be competitive, but to help you just stay safe in a race like this.
Yeah, for sure. You get that car to the inside call. You don't know if he's all the way down on that yellow line or if he's a foot or maybe even 1 inch off your car. It's so hard to tell. It's kind of guesswork.
For sure, and no matter what setup you have, though, there's definitely going to be some guesswork in no matter what. And obviously, these guys have iRacing spotters to help them out as well. But and they have their virtual mirrors too. But with especially with how great and quick the runs are in the draft here, with these next gen cars, a lot of times that it is very easy to just not react in time and either have to just concede defeat or potentially cause an accident if you decide to throw that block.
Right, and sometimes too, it's just you can react in time and see it in time, but maybe an overcorrection on the wheel or just putting your foot down or just any sort of movement at the wrong time can really throw your entire race for a loop. The pace car is now going to lead these drivers through turns 3 and 4 for what is hopefully the final time it does that, and we can hopefully finish the race under green. There are two more attempts at a green-white checkered, so at maximum we could have two more restarts. And if you put it a long time ago, Kenny, you were going to make it on fuel with maybe zero green white checkers or just one. But as we get more and more of these, the more laps these guys have to do, the more they run the risk of just flat out running out of gas.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a real issue if we do have more green white checkers. You do see there on the bottom line, one driver having a connection issue. Jonathan Havey's been blinking in and out a little bit. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we are going green here.
Yeah, this time the leader was definitely learned from what happened last time. That's Thomas Fisher up front, definitely learning from what happened to Casey Campbell on the last race. Sean Campbell, excuse me. You can see Thomas and Campbell go up to the high side. That's Judith Cooper on the low side, as well as Christina Ryan. She slots in that number 24 car. The third driver down on the inside having a little bit of a connectivity problem. That is Harvey down low in that number 44 car. You can see him blinking. That's definitely going to force the bottom line to check up pretty hard there behind those two leading cars.
Yeah, and that 44 car doesn't have a whole lot of help on the bottom line. I don't blame them for not wanting to be behind him. The 97 car there, Don Florea, he is behind him, so he's going to try it out here. But we're coming to get the white flag, and that will make this race official if we can get to it. Coming through the tri-oval and leading this time by is Thomas Fisher. We'll see if he can hold on to it one more time.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, the driver who takes the white flag does not take the checkered flag. You can see just how much these guys are moving around, and got to hand it to Daniel Flora. He's one of the smarter guys in the league here, kind of making sure he checks up so he doesn't get involved in an accident. They're still pushing. Big push there from Campbell to the number 92 car. Fisher,
Oh
they're
boy.
sideways down the backstretch. Ryan now all the way on the bottom. Big wreck behind him. That's the big one. It's two cars now, maybe three for the finish here.
Yep, we're going to stay green flag here because of the fact that we took the white, so they will
Yeah, this
race
is
it
going to be
out.
the race.
Yep, so Dan Fleuret here, he doesn't have much help behind though, so if Christina Ryan can just kind of hold her line, she should be good.
Yeah, obviously there's not a whole lot she can do to make any block moves, or rather the 97 can make, and she is going to win this race. It is official. Coming home in second place is Daniel Floria. Andrew Houston going to round out your podium. TJ Handley only been on the service for 6 weeks. Great job on him to come home in fourth place. Lilac Zier finishes in fifth, with Rich Matthews in sixth. We're going to see if we can't get a replay here of what happened down the backstretch to cause that ginormous wreck. That was a big kerfluffle.
Yeah, for sure wasn't. I actually thought they were going to wreck before this. Florea kind of got up into the wall in turn two, but he was able to, he checked up the field and Katie Height got into him, but they were able to keep it straight. But then the leader at the time, Thomas Fisher, came and tried to throw a massive block on Christina Ryan, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, you're going to see the replay of this going on right here. You can see the first three cars and the respective lines kind of getting involved and wrecking into one another. And at that point, the whole track's blocked, Kenny.
Yeah, and you know, a few drivers, Thomas Fisher actually ended up flipping down the backstretch there. That was pretty wild to see it in slow-mo. There goes Thomas Fisher up over on his side and flipping around. I hope he's not in a motion simulator, but yeah, that was a big time wreck there. And actually, the collision itself actually kind of looked to be a little bit of netcode between him and Ryan. But I think they were going to make contact regardless. But that's the kind of thing that can happen when the contact happens right up at the front, is a lot of times hardly anybody makes it through.
Yeah, some men just want to watch the world burn. David Christie, definitely one of them, riding along with that number 92 car as he rolls down the backstretch. Anyways, the results for the race: Christina Ryan finishes in first place. Daniel Floria finishes in second. Andrew Houston rounds out your podium. TJ Handley finishes in fourth, with Lilac Zier rounding out your top five. Rich Matthews comes home in sixth, followed by Casey Metzger in seventh. Katie Height finishes in eighth, with Steven Martinez finishing in ninth. Sean Campbell rounds out the top 10, with Sean Smith coming home in 11th place. Harry Wills comes home in 12th, followed by Judith Cooper in 13th. Dean Timms finishes in 14th. Kenny?
Uh,
15th place, Jonathan Havey, Kenny.
Yep. 15th place is Jonathan Havey. 16th is Thomas Fisher. 17th is Henry Wyndham, and he was the last driver on the lead lap. Matthew Plaisance was 18th. Justin Delano was 19th. 20th, Jason Arnsberg. Errol Erexoy is in 21st. David Force in 22nd. Travis Kepler in 23rd. Eric Kulaga in 24th. Jeff Carollo, one of the fast cars early on, he was 25th. James Howard, 26th, and the last driver who started the race, Drew Neubauer, is in 27th.
Thank you, Kenny. The first person we're going to interview is our big winner here tonight, Christina Ryan. Hey, Christina, how you feeling?
I'm a little confused, but I'm feeling really good. So, what's up?
That was awesome. Well, first off, congratulations on your win. You were honestly one of the best pushers out there all night, so to see you kind of finish in first place is kind of surprising. Usually the people that are the best pushers aren't the best leaders, but you showed you could do them both.
Yeah, I've graduated from the EA House School of Drafting, so we got those monster pushes in, and I was having so much fun in both sessions just trying to rip tandems with people. I was ready to push Judith to the win if I could, but I guess I was in the right place at the right time for once, so everybody died around me, and we were the ones who survived.
For sure, I come home in first place. Does this give you any kind of confidence leading into next week? And obviously, instead of being in the middle of the day, it's going to be nighttime, and we're going to have about 30 more laps tagged on to the scheduled race distance.
Well, I kind of snuck in. I'm not actually a driver in this league, but they let me come in for the invitationals, so this is all you see of me. So nice to come in and jump in, get a win, and leave, I guess. But I do appreciate them letting me jump in so late and on short notice for this without everything. So I'm glad it didn't end up backfiring. So.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, Christina. Once again, congratulations on the win.
Thanks. Big shout out to Prismatic.
That was Christina Ryan, your big winner here tonight. And Kenny, you can take your pick of the next two drivers in the waiting room to see if we can get any more of the drivers on the podium to come in here.
Yeah, we'll have a chat with TJ Hanley. Hanley came home 4th place tonight. TJ started 24th in the back. What was kind of your game plan from the start, starting in the field? Were you trying to kind of hang out in the back, or were you trying to get up towards the front?
Yeah. First and foremost, this was awesome. This was fun. This is the best Daytona race I've ever been a part of. But yeah, that was the original plan, was to just try to use strategy, and the first 2 cautions happened, and then I think I stayed out. Then that put me somewhere around the top 15. We had that long green flag run, which I got to stay within that lead group, and just got to learn so much. I don't think enough has been talked about. When we let off these gas pedals, it really wants to shoot our cars off to the right, especially in the middle of the corners. And you're also dealing with tightness as well coming off the corner when you're in the drafts, and that's why some people get sucked into the outside wall. But man, this was fun. Honestly, I'm so glad I got to join in on this.
Well, I'm glad you had fun, and it was fun watching you. And speaking of watching you, that last lap, tell me your perspective on that last crash, because you did a fantastic job avoiding it.
Hold it straight and pray. No, coming into it, my initial thought was, okay, don't go to the middle until the last lap. Don't be that guy. I kept thinking about it, kept looking. And it just comes down to just saw the chaos of a green car going up. I was like, oh, here we go. Then it's a matter of just keep it straight. If there's a hole, go. And yeah. I mean, you can see I didn't move the wheel at all. It was just the gates of heaven opened up for me. Followed the 40 car through, and there's no reason for us to fight for third, so I just figured I'd stay behind him. There's no reason to be that guy. No reason to be rude. But great racing, great group. A couple of drivers a little aggressive for my liking, but you need a couple of aggressive guys to learn from them, and then you need a couple of conservative guys like me to learn from us. And just great racing, man. I really loved tonight's overall feel of it. I know late race cautions kind of dampened it a little bit, but honestly, this was really good racing.
Yeah, and it was a great finish for you tonight, coming in the top 5. Who would you like to thank for the run tonight?
Oh, man. Thank you to, first and foremost, my boss. I'm actually at work using my work computer for this. I can only use one of the 2 screens. The Trading Paints for letting me post all my paint work on there. Ford Mustang did really good tonight. It felt awesome. And thank you to all of WSL, because this is, it's weird racing with some Europeans on an oval, but at the same time, so much more fun. There's a lot of different disciplines to learn. And that's all this is for me. It's just learning, because the day I stopped learning, the day I shouldn't be doing it anymore. And I love to learn. So very thankful for this opportunity.
I appreciate that philosophy, but great run tonight, TJ, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
That was TJ Hanley. Great run for him tonight. It was nice talking to him. Austin, you going to grab another one of our drivers to talk to?
Yeah, man, I think I'm going to go with Thomas Fisher. Hey, Tom, obviously not the end that you wanted to have, but before that, last couple laps, you were hauling out there at the front.
Yeah, no, it was a really good run for everyone at Vulture. At some point we were leading the top line 1, 2, 3, 4, and we were just dominating up there. But sometimes we just got bad luck. I got unlucky with a couple of cautions falling a bit further back, but whenever we were at the front, nothing could stop us. And just on that last caution, Campbell got to my outside, and from then I tried to move inside, but Christina had too much momentum. And then from then I tried to correct out, but it was too late, and there was about 1.5 feet, 2 feet of net code between us, and that killed the whole field. But obviously getting pole really promising for next week, and it was good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you mentioned that net code, but before that, you sat on pole for the race, so you started up front. Didn't quite get the finish you wanted to, but does this give you any kind of momentum for the next week here? Because we're at the same track.
Um, Honestly, I don't believe in momentum. Each race is a new race. You got to approach it in the same way you would any other race. I'm very rarely able to win 2 races back to back, and I've never won at Daytona from pole. So the goal for next week then is to basically not get pole, and then we'll see what happens from there. But obviously it's promising. We know that all the Vulture guys, we've got pace. We have the pace in qualifying, getting the top 3 in qualifying. So it's looking good for the rest of the season. But I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that we had some momentum.
For sure, buddy. Obviously through this entire race, you were a factor in all of it. Is there anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
So definitely my teammates at Vulture. So Jeff Carollo, Stephen Martinez, and Eric Colaga. Those guys were brilliant even after Jeff and everyone crashed out. Really, they were spawning for me, guiding me through it. They were absolutely legendary guys. Thanks to everyone who's out supporting me. I know I have a couple of friends who are watching. So cheers to them for obviously supporting me, and thanks to Harry for putting this on, and thanks to you guys up here doing the commentary.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time as well, Thomas. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
Thomas finished 16th tonight. Kenny, is there anyone you want to talk to?
Yeah, we got one more here. We caught up with Rich Matthews, who was a 6th place finisher tonight. Rich, you started deep in the field, 20th place, but up to 6th at the end. You managed to mostly get through that last wreck on the last lap, but how would you assess your race?
Well, I mean, this was a high line race. If you could run a high line, you were able to maintain, stay with the field. It worked out good for you. I like to start in the back on these races because obviously there's going to be cautions and you could gain a lot of spots just by attrition. This race here was a lot different than the EU race. I noticed this is a bit faster. It seems like these guys have a bit better setups or something. I did have trouble in the EU race. It was got touched in the corner and went around, but this race was a lot different. I finished better in this race. I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, it's a different ball game. And these U.S. drivers, well, us U.S. drivers, I should say.
So, being that you ran in the EU race, and now that you got this one under your belt, have you learned much about this new car, or just anything that you can apply from what you've done today that you can apply to next week when we do it for real for points?
Well, from the EU race here, I gained about a half a second in my qualifying time. I noticed the gearing has a lot to do with how you race. The suspension has a little bit to do with it. Just how well you hold line and stuff. Staying out of trouble has a lot to do with it. The gearing, I think, is going to be key to the next to the real race here. Gearing and pit strategy. If you could nail the pit strategy and come out where you have your windows, your last pit stop, and you fill that window up, and you can run the last 30 laps or whatever without pitting. That's going to give you a big advantage too, because some of these other guys may not have that same strategy, and they'll have to pit, and they'll get you in front of what potentially could be an accident. And just staying clean there will help you a lot too. But I'll probably end up running. I got invited to run both of them, I'm pretty sure. So the EU race, I'm pretty sure, is going to be pretty much the same as it was today. The US race, though, I do have a feeling that these guys are gonna bring something different, and I'd watch that high line because I noticed today that if you got the right cars in the high line, man, it was fast. So I want to take that information there and see if I can tweak my setup a bit. I mean, there's not much you could do with the super speedways, but I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see what I can't do, and hopefully I get a good finish out of it. Just try hanging on the back like I have been, and avoiding the accidents and seeing what I don't have that last little window.
Well, another student of the sport. I like to see that. But great run for you tonight. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for your run?
Well, I'd like to thank Harry. He invited me to this run here, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to thank you guys for putting this on. mean, I know us drivers, we did pay an entry fee and all that stuff, but other than that, it takes a lot behind the scenes. So I know I work with TGR Nation. I'm a member of TGR Nation, and we do a lot of this hosted league stuff, and there's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't see that needs to be recognized. So I'd like to thank them for what they're doing, and hopefully we have a good season here.
Well, we hope the best for you, Rich, and it was nice talking to you. We'll see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have a good night.
Yep, you too. That was Rich Matthews, and we'll throw it back to Austin, and we can close out for the night.
Yeah, for sure. Real quickly, we'd like to thank the sponsors that make all this stuff possible. SIM3D are a UK-based business specializing in high-end bespoke post-sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk. Go for the Gap as our second sponsor. They're a brand of Cami Sturge. She's a young British artist who creates some incredible motorsport themed prints over on her Etsy page. You just Google Go for the Gap and the first result should be her Etsy page. Go check her out. Lots of cool prints on there. I'm Austin Belke. Alongside me in the booth was Kenny Kibbe, and the man bringing all the great angles on the camera side was David Christie. We'd like to thank you all for watching, as well as the World Series League for doing this NASCAR series, and thank you for watching. Have a good night.